Fit in a place as this. Fit is it that's going on? And far are we anyway? It looks like a village fete. Maybe doing about the border some way. For the snatches you can hear a fit folk are saying, you'll maybe twig that this is France, nae Scotland. This is the town of Aubigny-sur-Nère, about an hour's drive south of Paris. The town has long historic ties with Scotland, and with the Stuart dynasty in particular. Every year they had a Franco-Scottish Festival, and that's what we've just been seeing. Who are this begun? The town's mayor, Laurence Regnier, is going to want to tell us in her speech at the festival's opening ceremony in 2025.
Un peu d'histoire ne vous fera pas de mal. 1295.
A wee bit history wanna die only here. The year 1295. France and Scotland, King Philippe le Bel and John Balliol were put in the seal in the Anent Alliance, a pact of friendship and mutual defence. This alliance, the most ancient and the longest lasting in diplomatic history, was a lot more than just a simple military agreement. It has woven deep ties between their folk and ours, with an influence on our cultures, our languages, and even our destiny for centuries. French and Scots have stood side by side, sharing victories and trials, forging a common, rich and fascinating history. This alliance is a living testimony showing that friendship, as long as it's sincere and written into shared values, can cross our ages and borders. It minds us in the strength of human ties that can rise up in differences and big a common heritage. It's bedint to this old alliance that John Stuart of Darnley, Constable of the Scottish Army, landed in France with his men in 1421 to battle the English against the future King Charles VII. To thank him for his bravery, on the 21st of April 1421, the regent gave him the lairdship of Congressall, and signed on 26th of March 1423 the lairdship of Aubigny.
An important event happened in 1512, when a fire burnt down most of the town. For the rebigging, the laird at that time, Robert Stuart, allowed the use of trees for his estate. Many of the town's half-timbered houses are frae that period. Another new biggin was the castle, often cried Le Château de Stuart. The castle stands to this day in a mere modern role as the town house and as a museum. The end come in 1672, when Charles Stuart, the last Stuart laird, and nae the same chiel as bonny Prince Charlie, died. He had nae male heir, so the lands in the castle passed back to the French crown. Nowadays, Aubigny is the twin town of Haddington. Haddington's ties with France begun in 1548 with the Treaty of Haddington that arranged for Mary Queen of Scots to be married to the future King Francis II of France. At the time, she was a queen of 6-year-old. Haddington was there at the opening ceremony as well, in the form of Councillor John Macmillan, the Provost of East Lothian.
Je suis toujours fier de recevoir ces clés.
Am I proud to begin this keys? They're the symbols of our friendship, You've seen the keys to Edinburgh. For me, the keys of Aubigny are even more important. I'll accept. I'll receive these keys for the young folk. The keys are for the future, for I.
Awa fae the steer of the ceremony, I had a quater wordie with Mayor Regnier and Provost Macmillan.
L'Écosse fait partie de l'histoire, je dirais plus de l'âme d'Aubigny, puisque Aubigny, il y a plus de 600 ans, a été donné à Jean-Stuart de Darnley.
Scotland forms part of the history. I'd say more, the soul of Aubigny. Seeing as Aubigny, more nor 600 years syne, was given to the Scotsman John Stuart for Darnley. And for 1250 years, the Stuart family were the lairds of Aubigny. So Scotland runs in Aubigny's veins. It forms part of the history of the town, and the ties are stronger than what you could think. I find that the Aubigny folk, the Albanians, have kept a Scots soul in the way that they've kept the same way of hospitality as the Scots. When an Albanian gangs to Scotland, he feels at home, and I hope it's the same when the Scots visit Aubigny. And when we say that Aubigny is the most Scottish of French towns, or the most French of Scottish towns, I think it's just the truth. The ties are not just ties for folklore, they go far deeper. There's a Scots soul in Aubigny. Scotland runs in the veins of the Albanians. It runs in the architecture as well, in the hairskirt of the community.
So I was here last year, and for the last few years I've been given the keys to the city at the opening of the festival, and it's always interesting to hear Madame Regnier, the mayor. It's always good to hear her talk about the past and the history and the links with Joan of Arc, the links with John Stuart of Darnley and Barrow Stuart. But I think it's also good to know that those links still go on. It was good to hear her talk about the words that describe the Old Alliance. The Old Alliance isn't written on a ewe-skin parchment of the words. It's written on the skin and flesh of man. It's not written in ink, but it's engraved in blood. And I think when I come here, I realise all that history. But as she said at the opening yesterday as well, it's really about the now, the here and now, and the future.
If you going to the festival now, what kind of thing are you going to see in here? That is, for boy folk in a rare time with it, you'll see pipe bands, parades, reenactments, stalls, and folk going about the streets wearing kilts and tartans in a way you wouldn't often see in Scotland. Some of the stalls belong to folk selling their wares, while there's other ains for particular clans. For example, there's this een for Clan MacTavish. He's going to want to tell us about the bejorner number of folk that the festival draws.
They say that there's 45,000 visitors over the weekend. That's an enormous amount of folk that are enthusiasts for Scotland, kenning that the weekend is aye the same as the national weekend, the 14th of July.
The Chiel at Clan MacGregor's stand will tell us a bit about the clan's history.
Voilà, donc je tenais particulièrement à remercier la municipalité de son accueil. Chaque année...
So, I have to give special thanks to the Town Council for their welcome. Ilka year we can introduce our clan to the public and make it better kent. The clan stands out for being in with French roots, seen as the founder gaed over for Normandy. This gives the clan a special tie with France, as well as just the Old Alliance.
I will say, I couldn't get anybody for the clan in Scotland to confirm that their founder was somebody that gaed over for Normandy. We're going back to Clan MacTavish for a bit more about how well Scotland is kent and appreciated far and wide, often more than Scots folk themselves ken about.
I don't think the Scots understand that. Here in Europe, and not just in Aubigny-sur-Nère, there's a lot of affection, a lot of passion for Scotland. It's across the whole of Europe.
That's right. To stick my neck out about the mare, even in France, that means that there's about 42 French tartans created in honour of the descendants of Scotland. In Brittany, there's 9 only wide, there's the Auvergne, there's the Burgundy, there's even the French National Stadium with a kilt. So you see, Scottish culture is integrated equally in French culture.
And besides, you hear run about, the hen, the loons, the bagpipes, there's pipe bands. There's the French Pipe Bands Federation.
And it's for Aubigny-sur-Nère and the Anent Alliance as well.
When you're ever in Aubigny yourself, you want to have to look far to see signs of the ties with Scotland. Walking about the town, you see Scottish regalia in some of the local shops, and the Tourist Information Office has a shoppie that sells Scottish wares, food and drink and the like, and souvenirs. When you're needing mere detail about the ties, you're likely going to the All Alliance Interpretation Centre. When you get to Spicken, you'll maybe twig something you wouldn't ken richt awa. Many of the folk that keep the whole thing going are in-about comers and nae local. Melanie Toundness, that you'll see across the counter when you ging in, is nae even French. She's for the German-speaking part of Belgium. As well as German and English, she kens Belgium's other languages, French and Dutch. So she's well suited to dealing with folk for all the arts.
Donc, je m'appelle Mélanie Toundness. Je suis originaire de...
I'm for Belgium. So I've been working in Aubigny-sur-Nère for, more or less, we'll say for a bit more than a year, at the Auld Alliance Interpretation Centre that has its home in the Stuarts' Castle. So I've the role of mediator, cultural mediator. That's to say, I add value to this rich heritage through creative workshops. For example, we draw in folk to take part in conferences. I explain to visitors the history between Scotland and France. Coming from abroad myself, I discovered this cultural heritage that I think is awful interesting as well as rich. Aye, so the ties between Scotland and France are still gey close. You see this as well in the Franco-Scottish Festival that they hold ilka year in July in Aubigny-sur-Nère. That draws up to 40,000 visitors, gin I'm informed recht. So the cultural exchanges are aye gone strong, aye. Forby there's the twinnin between Aubigny-sur-Nère and Haddington.
Martine Destinave is the secretary at Aubigny's Twinnin Committee, and she hails from near her hand. She'll tell you the level with herself.
Je m'appelle Martine Destinave. Je suis secrétaire du comité de jumelage Aubigny.
I have been the secretary of the Aubigny-Haddington Twinning Committee for a good 10 years after I came to bide in the area. In actual fact, I was born in Paris, but I had the chance, when I was a younker, about 20 years old, to go to Scotland as an au pair queenie in Edinburgh. I bed for nigh on 2 years. That's where my love for Scotland and Scots folk comes fae, saying they took to me sae weel when I was a warrior. I knew I bide in a wee placey nearby Aubigny-sur-Nère. And I kent there was a twinning committee atween Aubigny and a town in Scotland cried Haddington.
Donc je m'étais dit que quand je viendrais m'installer...
So I had said to myself when time came to settle into the area, seeing as I'd a hoosie and heired for my mother, that I'd contact the committee. Kenning the way I adore Scotland, I said to myself that I mun join it.
Claude Tanner is the president of Aubigny's Twinning Committee. His way in about was even more complicated. I'll let him tell you all about it himself.
Nos origines qui ne sont pas albigniennes.
We're nae fae
Nous
hereabouts.
venons, mon épouse et moi,
My wife and myself both come from the Ile-de-France region. through our work, for we'd been biding 42 years. I used to be an office worker for a post office, for there was a holiday village with the name of Azareva. Afore that, it was Holidays PTT. They had sites dedicated just for postal workers, and I was the president. In the summertime, we used to ging eens a fortnight, my wife and myself to Saint Montaigne, and soon as we arrived on a Friday evening, and we left on a Sunday evening, with the market being on a Saturday morning, my wife had the pleasure of going to Aubigny. And that means that, for our retirement, we were wanting to flit for the Ile-de-France. We arrived in Aubigny, for we had our first Burnsnacht. And we were recht tricked with a festival that we didna ken in France. A first tasting of haggis, a traditional Scottish dish that we didna ken. A famous haggis, an original thing, like we hae mony of them in France. Maybe nae the same, but just as fine. That was it, and after that, we joined a twinning committee. Nowadays, we're trying to do new things with the twinning committee. A year before, we had a wine tasting with French wines and Scottish cheeses, signed an eye with Robert Burns. In the years ahead, we're going to try other exchanges in the culinary field.
The historic ties in the festival are rare things in themselves, so you shouldn't be surprised to ken that there's plenty more that goes on thanks to the twinning outside the festival time. You shouldn't be surprised either to ken that somewhat has to do with French wine and Scotch whisky. Somewhat is at times of the year that you wouldn't think were ideal for going places. Christiane Maurice was once the president of the twinning committee, and she's going to want to tell us more.
Together with my man, we discovered Scotland. They take us places. We get to Skye. We get round all the distilleries you can imagine. We get on some grand wee hurdles. It was the same in France, seeing our friends are all wine lovers. The highest time was in Alsace in the month of November.
Twinning is not just something that's carried on from afar, with email and text messages and phone calls and all that. Part of it is folk going back and forth, meeting one another, seeing in another's countries, and even biding as guests in one another's houses. Here's Christiane Maurice again to tell us about our friendship with a Scots couple, Jimmy and Carol.
I'm right glad at our ties with Scotland. I've kent Jimmy and Carol since 1989 on anyway. They're awfully dear friends. They're like family. They're our family in Scotland. We met since Jimmy was a drummer in the Haddington pipe band, and we got to ken him for the first time with an old gentleman who was a piper himself. And 2 years after, his spirit could he come with his wife and his daughters. So we welcomed Jimmy and Carol's daughters to the house, and from then on, we've been in contact. For us, they're part of the family. Lately, they had the rare pleasure of going to my second grandson's 30th birthday. As well as that, they've given our grandparents a taste for languages. So they're all good friends of ours. I get to the weddings of the 2 daughters. Them and I were at my man's funeral. Jimmy get to the cemetery in his kilt. That shows the ties we have. He wouldn't have gone wearing breeks. His official rig-out is his kilt.
Meanwhile, Provost John Macmillan is going to want to tell us about the same kind of thing, but from another angle.
Since the 60s and when twinning started, we've had exchange students. Some of them have had boyfriends. I think there's one that's even got married to a Frenchman because of her time here. And they come and they work here, and we receive one of the Aubigny people for 2 or 3 weeks, and they work and live. And there are some good friends that we've made. We've had 2 or 3 of the students. We've had twinning families come and stay with us, and that keeps it all alive.
When Scots folk coming to Aubigny to see friends there, now we'll ging the other way to Aubigny folk that have travelled in Scotland and have come awa wi a liking for the place. This quine, that only gied me her name as Stephanie, is a cannel designer. She's been to Scotland, and it's fae Scotland that she takes her inspiration for her work. She was at the festival to sell her cannels.
I'm a fan of Scotland, and it's a bonny country that I've already visited. This festival day here in France allows me to dive back into it. Seeing as I'm a cannel designer, I make a whole range of tartans, say it's rare. You meet real Scotch folk here, and it's even better. The folk are likeable here. We had the festival, you can clake wi abody, you can hae a drink of beer, you can look at all the bonny stalls. The quality of the handicrafts is brilliant.
For other folk, the inspiration is different. Isabel Pinson is a druggist business in Aubigny's main street. That's nae something you can set up in a stall, but the business is called the Alliance, and Isabel Pinson herself was once the president of Aubigny's twinning committee.
Je m'appelle Isabelle Pinson. Je suis pharmacienne à Aubigny-sur-Nère.
I'm a druggist in Aubigny-sur-Nère. I'm the owner and the keeper of the All Alliance Pharmacy in Aubigny-sur-Nère. It's a business that's mair nor 200 year old. Wi me, it's cried the All Alliance, seeing as we're on Scottish grun. I've a history of friendship with Scotland, personal and with the toon. I was the president of the twinning committee for a period of years. Now, it's Claude that's taking it on.
Christian Maurice leaves us with an important point, that what the local Aubigny folk look for in the twinning is nae aye the same as what the twinning committee aim for.
Twinning is an important thing for Aubigny, but the Aubigny folk do not aye understand. For them, it's about seeing Scotsmen parading in kilts. They do not aye see the point of twinning. On the other hand, what's important to us is to send young folk to Scotland and to get back a sana young Scots.
Earlier I said that most folk that took part are nae local. At long last, here's somebody local. Natalie at the info point.
I'm a true Albanian, seeing as I was born in Aubigny-sur-Nère. I'm recht proud to be Albanian, seeing as Aubigny is near like other tunes. It was in Scottish. In the time of the 100-Year War, that is, when France was at war against the English, the Scots came to help us. Aubigny, our tune, was gained by way of thanks to a Scotman, Lord Darnley.
Before we end this, let's hear a bit more for the Haddington folk. Provost John Macmillan will give us his advice on Fint will be waiting gin we mak wearing way to Aubigny-sur-Nère.
There are folk reenacting, there are folk doing crafts and so on, there are people selling kilts, and if anybody ever gets the opportunity to come over the weekend of the 14 Juillet of the French National Festival, it's worth looking out for on a trip to France. The chateau's marvellous with its research centre of the Old Alliance. The people are genuinely friendly, and if you're wearing a kilt or a bit of tartan, they'll stop you and they want a blether.
Bill Bradford was a piper in the Haddington Pipe Band, and he was there at the beginning, the early days of the Franco-Scottish Festival. He even had a hand in the founding of Aubigny's own pipe band.
Aubigny had, because of its history, had a connection with Scotland, and they always had a Scottish fete Franco-Écosse, and he sort of reinstituted this. From that, he started various things during that festival and whatnot, and every 2 years we came along, and it gradually built up. We finished up helping establish a pipe band for the Aubigny. We sent tutors, some other people came across and tutored, and they established a pipe band, and it has just grown from what it is to what you saw here today, which is, I've never known anything like it. It's quite different. And this is two of us who were in at the very beginning. We are now in our 80s. This is possibly, certainly as far as I'm concerned, possibly be my last visit, because it is quite a trial. But the fact that we are still going after since 1989 is we've gone to love this town, and the pipe band has a special relationship here, which continues.
We'll give the last word to another piper, David Lockie, another one that's been in it for the early days.
I have stayed with the same host since 1989, and we've become extremely good friends. It's been a lifelong friendship, and now both families are growing up, and so we carry on that relationship and send presents, etc. And of course I'm staying with Christian once again, and it's just amazing, that relationship. So I think it's just a very, very special link between town, Haddington and Aubigny, and will continue.